Penis testing. Um, so yeah, welcome. Let's jump right into it. So this week has been pretty eventful. I started the week making the weapon swap system actually work pretty well. I'm really happy with it now. And I was having a lot of issues with the system that I had in multiplayer, and I went into the shooter game code for the free project, and I took all the C++ code and I migrated it into blueprints, and I finally was able to get it working, and it works really well. Because what was happening is like guns were um, detaching from people, or they were seeing other people were seeing like ghost guns, or some people were seeing two guns. It was very it just wasn't working. So now it works great, and there's a lot of work to do, but it's getting there. And that seems like forever ago, to be honest. Because what I'm most excited about is this cosmetic update for Crum. He's sort of um, the character that I had in mind early on in production. And don't ask me where it comes from, because I have no idea. And that's kind of on purpose. I like things that are sort of silly and nonsensical, and I'm looking for a picture here. Oh yeah, here we go. So this was on the right side, Crum beforehand, and he was sort of, for all intents and purposes, just a placeholder. I was still figuring out how to get the pipeline of, exporting skeletal meshes from Maya into Unreal and having all the animations work and yada yada yada. So, needless to say, I was I was ready to give him a makeover because, to be honest, I was sick of looking at this model because it's not very good. It looked gross. So happy to give him a nice happy to give him some love. And also, in addition to just the visual update, and the model and the textures, he's also got kind of a new animation that sets him apart from the survivor class. That's also in much. It definitely needs a makeover too. And that's the way he's standing right now. And also um, the way when he fires, he gets a nice little third person animation, and he's got a cool morph target when he starts firing, where he gets angry. He goes ah. Let me see if I can pop a zombie over there. So yeah, and he's got a cool helmet, and there's a little class simulation going on, and the straps. He's got kind of like a Vietnam World War II era shaped helmet, and yeah, I mean I think like uh, even though there's no real direct inspiration that the character has, and he doesn't really have any lore or specific backstory yet. He is kind of inspired by, Call of Duty Zombies, which is really what this game is, a sort of I guess a clone of, at least at this point. So having the World War II type stuff, and I know this gun isn't a 1911 or whatever, the M something. It just does. I feel like it kind of resembles it. So I think that if I had to give an answer where this guy comes from, that would be the best. That would be the best answer I could give. And actually, there's another thing that uh, inspired Crum. Actually, funny enough, in this past week was a client that I had at my last job who had Down syndrome, and he was very we had kind of a weird relationship because he didn't really like me, and the girl that I was dating at the time, she was sort of responsible for him, during work hours. And I whenever I saw him, I really liked him. I wanted to get to know him and spend time with him because I thought he was cool, and I know my girlfriend was always told these hilarious stories about him. So um, I I started to kind of like buy him snacks and just hang out with him, and he started to warm up to me. But he just had certain mannerisms and certain things that he did were just were just awesome, and he grew to like me, and we had some fun times. But he kind of had a pot belly, and he had this interesting posture. He was really small, unlike Crum. Crum is very big, um, but he had this kind of interesting posture and expression, and that was kind of in the back of my head when I was designing Crum. It was kind of an homage to the kind of the person that he was, or still is. I mean, assuming he's alive, I'm guessing. So yeah, and he's also got a little bit of an idle animation on his head. You can see it sort of rocking a little bit. I'm trying to experiment with just the animation system in UE4 to get a result that I really like, because I'm trying to stay ahead of my lack of experience, especially in animation, and being able to blend animations per bone. Like, I can take different animations from different places, even free resources, and I can put them in Unreal, and I can blend parts of animations together. So I can sort of take a bunch of animations and make it my own. And I guess it's I'm sure suboptimal from the point of view of like a character animator who's like studied that and does that for work. But for me, because I'm sort of wearing a lot of hats making this game, it's actually really useful to just kind of make animations that way. And the results of like kind of doing it tend to be pretty funny. And I've uh, because of that, I've started to lean more into kind of the humor and just sort of the goofiness of this world. Uh, while I still want it to be a survival horror game, I want it to have a sense of tension. I want it to scare players to some extent, or have them feel motivated to stay alive and to be afraid of being hurt in any second. I also want there to be a lot of just silliness and a chance for people to pick this game up and not just experience this incredible anxiety of playing a horror game or something. I mean, that was one of the things about Phasmophobia was it was super fun, but it was also just caused a lot of anxiety to play it because it was scary. Of course, when you broke through that the fear and you played it enough times, and it wasn't scary enough, and then it wasn't actually very fun anymore. And I don't want this game to, if I can help it, I don't want it to have suffer from a similar syndrome, where if people break through this fear, then all of a sudden the game's not compelling anymore. I think the game should be fun and fun to pick up and replayable. That's my biggest hope, while still maintaining that ambiance of horror and scariness and all that stuff. So yeah, there's gonna be some some silly stuff, and yeah. Also, there's a weapon offset, which if you haven't noticed, I'll point it out to you now. And it's cool. It's sort of like a blend space, or it's basically blending two animations based on the look rotation of the character, and it kind of adds a little bit of it makes it feel a little bit more dynamic when you are looking around. It's only affected on the vertical axis, or the the pitch. There's no yaw. I couldn't quite get that working, and but that's totally fine. If I feel compelled to in the future, I'll find a way. But for now, this is pretty good. I'm also not sure where I'm gonna find a place for the Crum gun. I actually really like how grounded Crum has, how grounded he looks when he is carrying a real life handgun and wearing the helmet, for that matter. He can actually take the helmet off. It's actually being equipped in the begin play. But I like the fact that he looks like he's using real world things and not some sort of like fantastical gun. So what does that mean? I'm not exactly sure. He may the Crum gun may find its way or stay in the game as for a debug, or it may just change looks, or it may become a shotgun. I'm not sure. But yeah. Let's see. And the weapon swap system was very interesting, like very fun to dive into. I was on it for maybe, I think, almost a week, and I spent about 4 or 5 days on one problem. And the problem that I was having was I wasn't I described it earlier in the video, and it was just I just couldn't figure out what was happening. And I was racking my brain, and I was going through the shooter game code just over and over again, and I was trying out different things in the editor, and finally I came to on a forum what would prove to be the solution. And the problem was basically that there's these onrep functions in Unreal, and they can take arguments in C++, but they can't in blueprints. So there's one specifically that was the problem, and it was the one where I think it's called on the character. Yeah, unwrap current weapon it was this function that was getting replicated. So this, and I commented out like a whole bunch of this stuff because it was just so it was so glorious when I found out what was happening, and it was like really it was really gratifying to come in here and comment these things, and because I actually know what they all mean now. And I say I've been working on this for the past week. I mean, in reality, I've been working on this off and on for the past several months, and I stepped away from this whole part of the code, and I just sort of wrote it off as like, well, I guess this is just out of my wheelhouse, for until a while. And I'd find reasons to reapproach it, and sometimes it just it'd be too much, and I'd be like, all right, I'm just gonna have to table this again. So I have kind of a long history with this, especially this part of the code. But finally it's all good. And every time that a character in the game changes their weapon, the server knows about it and is able to display the correct weapon to the clients, while also maintaining the correct current weapon on the server and the clients. Because that's a funny thing, like when you switch weapons on, when you run this function on the server, it looks fine, but that's because the server, the client server has authority. They are the network, so they're going to run it in a different way than the clients, because the weapon switch isn't called by isn't at first immediately called by the server. It's called by the client, because the client has a replicated variable called inventory, And the inventory just stores like the weapons that the server has given them. And those weapons are added into this array that the local client knows about, because they're spawned on the server and then replicated to the owning client. So when I'm a client and I'm joining my friend's server, and someone and I join in, and I've got these weapons spawned in my inventory. Well, yes, they were spawned by the server, but I know about them, and so does the server. So when I hit the switch weapon button, it's basically taking the next weapon in that array, and then in taking, you know, the weapon I had before and the weapon I would have post switch weapon, and it's feeding that into a server function that's telling the server this is what's happening. So the server knows about it once it goes through this server function, not before. So when this client server runs this function, the same one that it would on the client, well, it goes through it, and it basically comes with a different result because it's already on the network. And I know that's probably really confusing, but it's actually a pretty interesting dynamic when you think about replication, and why it can be as complicated as it is just because I don't know, replication and networking, even without having to deal with packet loss and all those things that I wouldn't even know where to begin with. It's just a complicated thing. Interesting web of problems, but man, once you get it and it's working, oh my gosh, it's better than sex. It's better than sex. So, and there's lots of things that are coming next, like decrementing ammo and having a reload, whole reload function thing that I've already began a little bit of that. Right now it's actually doing a print string at the top. It's just displaying the ammo that's in my clip. But that's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be a ton of fun when you can start reloading your gun and conserving your ammo and having that real feel of like a modern first person shooter. Which also raises some questions that I haven't been able to answer yet. For example, how are you going to refill your ammo if you run out of clips? Are you going to buy them off the wall like COD? Are zombies going to drop it? I kind of leaning towards zombies dropping loot. I do want this game to have loot, and that's for a number of reasons. But putting ammo and reloading into this game I almost was gonna completely scrap that idea. Not just because it's a pain in the ass, but also because I didn't really have. I still don't want to have like a bazillion guns in the game. I don't want there to be too many guns. I want there to be I want them to be modular in some way, kind of like Binding of Isaac or Risk of Rain 2. So I just thought, well, maybe reloading just won't be fun in this game, and it'll just seem like kind of this obligatory, oh, okay, I have to reload now. So it's not really actually a problem that I think I've solved yet, and of course things can always change also, but I guess time will tell. I think it'd be better to implement reloading and find out if it works, and then if it's not what I wanted, then I can always go back. There's also some definite work to be done on the instant. I'm doing something right now with the Crum gun that I don't think is quite performant enough So I'm going to be looking into doing line trace, multiple line traces or shotgun bullet spread, and finding out a better way of doing this. There's also a little, I'll show it to you on the bigger screen. There's a little bit of a smoke coming off the tip of the muzzle, and the breath I adjusted a little bit, and I believe I mentioned this maybe in the last episode, but there's a more retro low poly style that I'm starting to find. It's starting to emerge, and it's I think it's working better, and it's found its way into the particles, which is a really good thing, because I really like designing particle systems, but I also think that they can be needlessly complicated and taxing on hardware, and I don't want to run into a situation where I'm just spawning tons of these intricate particle effects that I don't have time to design, or the knowledge or experience, to be frank. I mean, they can be really complicated, especially Niagara effects. Like I've gotten some on the marketplace that are the free ones that are amazing, and they look amazing, but they tend to limit the amount of control that I have, because it becomes a huge pain to migrate the assets into this project. And I mean, I think you can get a pretty freaking good result with just cubes, to be honest. I mean, really, the only thing you're missing is like some sort of special material or sub UV animation, or tile set or whatever. But I mean, I think they work pretty good, and they don't draw too much attention to themselves. There's not too much glare. There's not too much there's not too much funkiness where it's like it's just adding too much stuff on screen. That's one thing that I'm really desperately trying to avoid in this game, is just giving people a chance to like not have so much crap on the screen and bombarding you with just images or colors or effects. I mean, I want it to be exciting and fun and engaging, but I don't want people to feel like, what do I look at? What's happening? And I think that there's a lot I can do in this area, and but that's a huge concern of mine. Because the tools that are available to all of us now are incredible, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And even the lights that are coming off the muzzle and illuminating the character in the third person view, I mean, sometimes I even go back and forth on that. I just think that's too bright. Like I don't want to see that flashing. I don't want people to squint their eyes when they're playing this. I think that's pretty good. Maybe the Crum gun's a little bit heavy. It's a little bit too bright. So also, people who know me know, or might remember how much I hate having voice lines in games. I think voice lines are just incredibly annoying and stupid, but I understand why they're there, and I understand, like, especially when people are really interested in the backgrounds of the characters and they want to like kind of be immersed in the world, that the voice lines inform that story, and it gives them this like kind of this this erection to think about what their favorite character is saying or doing. And I think I might have something analogous to a voice line in my game, but it'll be like instead of actual words, it would be more like like unintelligible grunts, kind of like in Banjo Kazooie or early Star Fox. Was it? I think Star Fox had real voices in Nintendo 64, but on Super Nintendo it definitely had, you know, those types of things, and Banjo Kazooie, which is like um, was actually really funny. I mean, they were. I think it was. That's funny. I mentioned Banjo Kazooie because that's probably the first time I was like genuinely amused by a game like on by something they put in on purpose. Like it was really funny and endearing to hear the characters, you know, sort of like blah, 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 blah. So I want to kind of do something like that, while also make fun of voice lines and shame people who do like them. I also want to find more opportunities for morph targets. I don't think that they're gonna. I don't know how much memory they take, but since my characters are so low poly, I don't think these are expensive at all, and I don't think it would be any less expensive if these animations were driven by skeletons in the face. But I'm not 100% on that because I know that ultimately, if you've got a lot of vertices on a model, you're gonna want to have bone-driven animation. But this one's gonna be they gotta be good old-fashioned morph targets. In fact, you know, why don't I just show you what that is instead of talking about it like everyone who watches this is gonna know what I'm talking about. Show you what a blend shape / morph target is, because it's actually really cool. Just throw open Maya here. Let's get our Crum in here. So the funny thing about morph targets is that it's not really an animation at all. It's really just a blending between two different models. So check this out. So here's Crum, and here's Crum, and let's say I wanted to make him change his face. Well, what I could do is and have him animate in the engine with the morph target. I can duplicate him, and I'll just isolate him, and I'll take some of these vertices on the same model that's duplicated, and I'll turn on soft select so I can move a whole bunch of them, and go over here and go to general here. Okay. And I'll just move some of them around. I'll move those over there. Maybe there's a sequence where like he starts getting really sick, or he gets stung by a bee or whatever, and it's like a silly thing that happens. So you move some vertices around. Okay. And you say, okay, I'm happy with that. Well, now you can take the duplicated model and select the original one, and then you can create this thing called a blend shape. And now if I go here, and this is the original one, and I go to my blend shape, now I can blend into it. Basically on a scale, you know, from 0 to 1, I can take all of the vertices, and I could say you're over here now. And then in the engine, when I import it, I can take that blend, which is in this case is the only one that he has right now, and I can adjust it, right? But this is just like looking at the skeletal mesh. So how do you get it to happen in the game? Well, what you do is you create. What I did is I created an event that's called I think it's called morph something. No, it's not. Target. No, it's not called that. Oh, it's in the weapon. That's why that's in the weapon. So here it is. So you just you can do it with the timeline node. And this logic here is basically how it works. So every time this is the fire effects function. This basically happens every time the weapon is fired, which is perfect because it only happens when there's actual ammo being used. You know, when it's not when the player presses the click button. It won't happen when they run out of ammo or when they're reloading. It only happens when ammunition is actually used. So, and then it plays this timeline, which is basically just an animation graph, and it starts at 0, which is the value of, you know, the 0 on the morph target, and then it ends at 1, or rather it starts at 0 at 0.07 seconds. It goes to 1.4, and then it goes over here to 1.52 seconds, and then it drops off and it ends at 2 seconds. And this extra logic here, the reason why there's a branch node and a boolean here, is because I want the animation to play once, and I want it to reset and stay. I want him to keep his angry face while he's firing. And once a period of time has stopped and the duration is lost, then I want him to return to his normal face. See, so if I fire once, angry, normal, angry, normal. Now if I fire angry, 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 it'll just maintain this state until I stop firing. Which is really, it's really important because, you know, if you switch these around, these nodes here, then it might just start from the beginning, you know, or stop or whatever. So this branch and all this stuff is absolutely necessary to make this work properly in this context. And I didn't really discover how to use blend shapes in Unreal until recently, and really how useful they could be. So until recently, so I'm super stoked on that. And I think the last thing that I'll say about this before I sign off is Crum's eyes, and teeth are TBD. I might do that too, but his eyes, I want to actually like dart around and have some life. And the way they're designed right now is going to have to change. Not the visual design, but the way the game knows about them. Because right now they're actually using a texture where I think what's going to happen is I'm going to use a form of like vertex animation or a panner, it's called like a 2D panner. And I don't know much about materials and shaders. That's something that's very alien to me. Like I know very little about it, but I've found resources online where people can animate, you know, an eyeball, or you know the pupil and the, I don't know what you'd call the whole of the colored part of the eye, but let's just call it the fucking eye color or whatever. They can make the eye color move around on a sphere just using a shader, and instead of using, you know, something like a rotation, or, you know, another bone in the skeleton or something like that. So I do want to explore that and see if I can make him kind of move his eyes around in certain ways at certain times. Maybe even have like an eye tracking where the eyes follow a nearby player or a nearby threat or something like that. I think it definitely adds some add some interest to the character. Just get people to feel like they're sort of really playing alongside another person or whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed to see this video, and yeah, enjoy your week. Drink plenty of water and enjoy it. All right, toodaloo.